Hello. I want to make the world a better place. So I start from what I love most, stories. Stories deeply matter to me. When I was a child, I used to have stories playing in my mind. I used to act them out in my body till one day my mother caught me talking to myself. And from that moment, I stopped acting out stories and I became silent and shy. But stories never left me. They have always moved through my body. So eventually I became an actress and a playwright. I encountered many inspiring stories, stories of people whose names I don't know or I don't remember, but I never documented them. I often wonder, what happens to the stories of our childhood, to our grandmother's tales, to the myths of our culture? I often wonder what happens to our love stories, to the memories of our youth. I ask myself if stories, they have a life of their own, if they can travel from one body to another body, and if they can change people's lives. My name is Christina Kyriazidi, and I come originally from Greece. I'm passionate about stories and how sharing them can contribute to personal and social health. My dream is to create a space where stories are treated as a new kind of currency. Storyforfood is a coffee shop in Berlin where you can trade your story for food and drinks. The stories will be documented, so the coffee shop will also become an archive for those interested in accessing stories for educational, research purposes, or artistic inspiration. The initiative, Storyforfood, has a triple benefit: empowerment, inspiration, and the potential for an alternative economy. First, the act of sharing empowers the person who shares the story, who offers the story, by enabling him or her to connect or to reconnect with it and experience emotional relief. Second, encountering stories from different cultural backgrounds or diverse experience can be inspiring for those engaged in any kind of artistic creation and can also be useful material for research. And third, this is a model for an alternative economy. It's a model for trading the intangible for the tangible. I am interested in the stories only you can tell, the unheard voices. I want to find out about the quality of our listening and if it's possible to develop our listening skills. I want to know what happens both to the teller and the listener when they share a story, and how it's possible to translate someone's memory into food. I wonder why we share personal stories with strangers, and if time can change the quality of a story. I would like to find out what makes a good archive and what kind of stories you, researchers or artists or writers or filmmakers, are missing. How do our stories travel through different bodies, inspire new creations, or provide the ground for emotional experiences? Imagine, for example, you are in the waiting room of a hospital or a train station, and then this room is filled with stories of others. Or if lonely people, they could hear the voices of others in headphones attached to benches in the park. This idea is new and on a European scale very pertinent. The current economic crisis, the current as well refugee crisis, and the arising new poverty in Europe demand alternative economy models, new integration policies, and fresh solutions of dealing with the traumatic effects of forced immigration. Storyforfood is an attempt to value stories from both an economic and personal perspective. By doing so, it will build trust, it will encourage tolerance among the European citizens, and maybe it will help them to shape a common EU identity. Finally, it will explore new narratives for Europe. Wealth is associated with money. Let's challenge that. Let's associate wealth with stories and let's just trade their stories. What would the world look like if we introduced a parallel intangible currency? How could this initiative be implemented to address hunger and new poverty in Europe? Is it possible to trade story for food? So my next step would be to create pilot events, prototypes in Berlin, where I can test my assumptions about how we listen, how we share, different models of alternative economies, and how can we use someone's story creatively. And what I would like to ask from you is ideas for startup funds, contacts of potential partners, and platforms where I could share this idea. Thank you very much.
So actually you're shaking up Maslow's pyramid. That's a real thing. This pyramid is actually really theoretical. You talk to people in Gaza, well, ask what they need. There's a whole other things. This pyramid doesn't work. We continue.
Final.